Mars in the first house, driven urgency. Welcome to Mars in the first house in Synastry. In this overlay, we explore what happens when one person's Mars falls into another person's first house, the house of the self, the body, the personal identity, and the immediate impression one makes upon the world. This is one of the most physically immediate overlays in Synastry. It does not operate through subtlety or gradual accumulation. It arrives at the first meeting, in the room, in the body, in the quality of attention that suddenly sharpens when these two people occupy the same space. Whatever this overlay produces it quickly, and it produces it in the flesh. Before moving into the specific dynamics of this placement, something must be said about Mars itself, because Mars is not Venus, and the difference is not merely one of function, but of nature. In traditional astrology, Mars is a malefic. This is a precise technical designation, not a moral judgment, and it carries real interpretive weight. Where Venus binds and harmonizes, Mars cuts and separates. Where Venus softens, Mars sharpens. Mars is the planet of drive, ambition, physical force, desire, and courage. And all of these qualities are genuinely valuable, sometimes essential. But Mars achieves what it achieves through pressure, through friction, through the application of force. Even at its most constructive, it does not operate gently. And when it operates destructively, it can cause real harm, not the diffuse atmospheric harm of a difficult Neptune transit, but direct, concrete, sometimes physical harm. What this means in Synastry is that Mars overlays require honest assessment. The energy Mars brings into another person's house is activating by nature. It stimulates, it provokes, it ignites. In some houses and under some conditions, that activation is precisely what is needed. In others, the same force that produces excitement and vitality can tip, under pressure or imbalance, into aggression, domination, or violation. The specific house Mars falls into determines not just the area of life that gets activated, but the degree to which Mars's malefic potential is either contained and directed well, or given room to become genuinely damaging. It begins here, with the first house, which is, as it happens, one of the more favorable places for Mars to land. The first house governs the self as it presents to the world, the body, the physical appearance, the temperament as it is immediately perceived, the quality of personal presence. It is the house of the ascendant, the point of rising, the interface between the interior person and the external world. In traditional astrology, Mars has a particular relationship with the first house worth noting. Mars rejoices in the first house by sect in certain configurations, and the first house is associated with Aries in the natural zodiac, the sign Mars rules. This does not make Mars in the first house automatically harmonious, but it does mean that Mars here is operating in terrain that has a native sympathy with its nature. Mars is a planet of initiation and forward force, and the first house is the house of beginnings, of the self in motion, of the body moving through the world. There is a resonance between planet and house that is genuinely meaningful. From the Mars person's perspective, the house person is immediately compelling, not in the way Venus compels through beauty or charm, but in a more primal and embodied way. The house person's presence registers as a physical fact. The Mars person is drawn to the house person's appearance, their energy, the way they carry themselves, the way they take up space. There is an activating quality to this attraction. The Mars person does not merely admire the house person from a distance but feels moved to engage, to pursue, to make contact. The house person seems to bring out the Mars person's drive, their assertiveness, sometimes their competitiveness. Simply being around the house person makes the Mars person feel more alive in the body, more alert, more energized, more themselves in the sense of their own forward momentum. From the house person's perspective, the Mars person's energy lands directly on the self, on the body, on the personal presentation, on the sense of identity as it meets the world. This can feel extraordinarily vitalizing. The Mars person may make the house person feel more attractive, more dynamic, more confident in their own physical presence. There is often a quality of being seen, not in the interior, 12th house sense of being seen in one's depth, but in the immediate embodied sense of being noticed, desired and responded to with genuine appetite. The house person may find that they stand differently when the Mars person is in the room, that they feel more willing to take up space, more energized in their own skin. At its most constructive, this overlay generates genuine physical chemistry and mutual activation. The relationship has vitality, a quality of aliveness and forward momentum that sustains engagement over time in a way that more passive overlays cannot always achieve. The Mars person catalyzes the house person's sense of self and personal agency, helping them step more fully into their own identity and physical confidence. The house person gives the Mars person a clear and compelling object for their energy, someone whose presence focuses their drive rather than diffusing it. This is a placement that keeps a relationship awake. There is little danger of stagnation here. There is also a quality of mutual courage that this overlay can produce at its best. Mars in the first encourages both people to be more fully themselves, more direct, more willing to act, less inclined to hide behind social pleasantry or comfortable performance. The relationship does not allow for too much passivity. Both people are called to show up as they actually are, which is not always comfortable, but which produces a quality of honest encounter that softer overlays sometimes lack. And yet Mars is a malefic, and the first house, despite its sympathy with Mars's nature, does not neutralize that. What the first house does is make everything immediate and personal. Mars energy lands on the house person's body, their identity, their sense of self in the world. When that energy is well directed, it is vitalizing. When it is not, the same force that produced excitement and confidence becomes something considerably more uncomfortable. The shadow dimension of this overlay must be named directly. Mars in the first house can produce a relationship dynamic in which the Mars person's energy feels less like activation and more like pressure, an unrelenting forward force that the house person begins to experience as intrusive, domineering, or destabilizing to their sense of self. The house person may find that the Mars person consistently overrides their preferences, pushes past their stated limits, or responds to any resistance with an escalation of pressure rather than a recalibration. This is not a vague or theoretical risk. Mars in the first house, operating without sufficient self-awareness or mutual respect, can produce a dynamic in which the house person's identity is gradually eroded by the Mars person's insistence on directing, shaping, or overwhelming it. At the more serious end of this spectrum, this overlay is associated with physical aggression. Mars is a planet of force, and the first house is the house of the body. When the malefic dimension of Mars is expressed fully in this placement, what results is not merely emotional friction or interpersonal conflict, but the potential for physical intimidation or harm directed at the house person's literal body and sense of personal safety. This is not inevitable. It is not even common in most charts, but it is a real possibility that belongs to the honest picture of what Mars in the first house can become when the conditions are unfavorable and the individuals involved lack the awareness or the will to redirect it. The distinction between the vitalizing and the damaging expressions of this overlay often comes down to the question of consent and mutuality. Mars's energy is inherently initiating. It moves toward, it acts upon, it applies force. When that initiating energy is welcomed and reciprocated, it becomes chemistry, confidence, aliveness. When it is applied without regard for the house person's response, it becomes encroachment. The Mars person in this overlay carries a particular responsibility to remain genuinely attentive to whether their energy is being received or merely endured, a distinction that Mars, by its very nature, is not always inclined to pause and check. At its highest expression, Mars in the first house creates a relationship of genuine vitality and mutual activation, one in which both people feel more fully alive, more courageous, more present in their own bodies and identities for having encountered each other. The Mars person brings energy, directness, and a quality of honest engagement that the house person may find genuinely transformative. The house person gives the Mars person a sense of purpose and focus, someone whose presence makes the Mars person's drive feel meaningful rather than merely restless. When balanced, Mars in the first house creates physical chemistry, personal activation, mutual courage, and a relationship that is awake to itself in a way that softer overlays cannot always sustain. When imbalanced, it can produce pressure, domination, identity erosion, and, at its most destructive, the application of physical force against the very person whose presence first made the Mars person feel most alive. At its core, this overlay is about the experience of encountering someone who makes you feel more fully yourself, more embodied, more energized, more willing to take up the space that is rightfully yours. The question it poses, and that only the two people involved can answer, is whether the force that ignites that feeling is one that respects what it has awakened, or one that over time begins to consume it.
This was Mars in the first house in Synastry Overlays. Thank you for listening. Next, Mars in the second house.